In today's episode, we get to learn how to make a photogenic career as a photographer. Coming up. In today's episode, you're going to feel empowered, unstoppable, and gain the tools to accomplish anything you can dream of, using real examples from some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. That's all happening today on the I Can Show. Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is James Martin. Welcome to the I Can Show podcast. It's the only show that showcases the realm of possibilities and how you can succeed in your passion. I'm super excited about today because we actually have two special guests for the first time on this podcast episode. We get to talk to two professional photographers and talk about their experiences on how they're able to create a successful career. And we're going to get started with our very first guest in just a moment. But first, I would love to mention to you that if there's something that really resonates with you in this episode, if you found a tip that really you found helpful, I'd love for you to let us know down either in the comments or please shoot us an email at icanshowpodcast@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. But right now, we're going to talk to our first guest, Ian McIntosh. Ian goes beyond capturing images of the world around him. His images embody his lifelong pursuit of stretching the boundaries of artistic expressions. And by the way, if you want to get to know Ian McIntosh and check out his work, please check out his website at ianmcintosh.com. We're also going to have the link down in the description of this podcast, wherever you're watching it. But right now, let's get Ian on board. Hey Ian, how's it going? Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. It's great to have you on board.
No problem. My pleasure.
So Ian, how did you get started with your photography?
Well, I started photography when I was a kid. My dad loved to get cameras and try to use them, but he wasn't really all that good. He had really nice gear, though. He had twin lens reflexes. He had little tiny spy cameras and SLRs and all that sort of stuff, but didn't really grasp the concept of taking good pictures. So that's where I really got started.
So what kind of pictures did you enjoy taking?
When I started, I was doing snapshots. So pretty much anytime I went traveling, I would take pictures of the scenery. I would take pictures of people in front of the scenery, usually right in the center of the frame so that they would block the scenery. And I like taking pictures of nature as well, but not really a lot. As I developed, I got my own SLR, the old film school days of SLRs. I had a Contax 35 millimeter, which ended up getting kind of wet one day in the Pacific Ocean. Wasn't really a good thing for a camera. There's only one thing worse than water that you can put a camera into, and that's salt water.
Yikes. So listen, Ian, I'd like to kind of get to know, so how did you start doing photography as a professional career? When did that begin and how did that process go about?
Well, my first career was as a musician. I was a tuba player for. I trained at the University of Toronto, and I became a professional musician. I played in a brass quintet that toured across Canada. Then I got a job with a one-year fill-in job with the Winnipeg Symphony. I kept studying, kept playing. After that, I went to Europe, and I was taking pictures of everything that I did. Then I turned 35 and realized that I couldn't get another job. The audition circuit for tubas wasn't really all that great, so I switched into sales and marketing. 20-year kind of gap between my artistic pursuits, and then I started working with a meetup group called Toronto Photographic Meetup. I think that's what it called, Meetup Group, TPMG. And I started organizing events for them. I wasn't a very good photographer, but I surrounded myself with really good photographers, most of whom were amateurs, but really enthusiasts. And I went from becoming as a photographer, I was a really good organizer, and then I became a better photographer. Learned all the different aspects of taking pictures and composition and all sorts of stuff, that just through osmosis. And I decided at one point that I would want to become a photographer. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to start working towards it. And then about, oh gosh, it would have been about close to 10 years ago now. Um, I started making overtures to my boss that I was really more interested in photography than selling his products and services. And eventually we just parted ways, and I decided at that point that I would take the leap and become a professional. And that was probably about 7 years ago that I gave up everything and started becoming a professional photographer. The first thing that I did was I decided that I would never take pictures of people. And that didn't really last very long, because people want to have pictures of themselves. They want to see pictures of other people. They're not interested in seeing pictures of, like there's a market for nature and landscape and all that sort of stuff. But
Right.
I noticed that people were more interested in getting portrait sessions and headshots and pictures of themselves. So I started going into portraits and headshots and events, and that really became the lion's share of my business.
Interesting.
This year, I made a decision to really put the fine art imagery into more passion projects and things that I want to do. I like to spend time doing it, but I really decided this year that I would do work for hire. So, what I was talking about, headshots, portraits, events. I do quite a bit of real estate and architectural photography. I do business image packages. So if a business is looking to highlight all of the products and services that they offer, that I will go in and take pictures of their business, so that it helps tell their story. And then something happened 2 months ago that completely changed my turned everything on its ear. So that was photo booths. I think it's really important for me to improve my skills all the time as a photographer. I do a lot of studying online. I'm a very independent learner, so I didn't go to Georgian College or any of the other community colleges or universities for their degree or diploma programs. I like to learn myself. So
Right.
I went to what I call YouTube University and learned pretty much everything that I've learned to date is either through YouTube or through talking with other photographers, or just going out and shooting and all that sort of stuff. So it was really important for me to become what I consider a highly skilled photographer, so that no matter what somebody puts in front of me, I can take a great quality picture of it. So that was one of the important aspects. But this year, when I made the decision to sort of put the fine art photography into like a background role, something happened a couple of weeks later. I picked up an event printer, and this printer actually spits out a 4x6 image, very high quality image, in about 10 to 20 seconds, which is a phenomenal speed for a high quality printer. But it's something that is quite common in the event industry if you're doing instant printing. And when I started doing that, I went and I did an event, a golf tournament for a local real estate agent, and then I actually went to one of my networking colleagues, and I said, I want to do a photo booth. I want to create a photo booth for you. And he was right on board with it. He's doing a charity tournament, and I had so much fun creating and operating the photo booth that it really got my mind spinning, and it completely turned my attention right on its ear, and so I explored it, and I realized that it encompasses so much of the things that I really value in my photography. First of all, it's actually a pretty high skill level if you want to do well. It's great for marketing, so it brings in my marketing background. It's a very social kind of photography. Because, in fact, it's not really so much photography, but it's an event entertainment business, and all those things really tie in well with the kind of personality that I have. And it's the kicker was that it has a high desirability level with people who have had experience with it and have desire to do it. So it's really cool because it has all those things that I like to do, and it's something that people want, and they want to they associate photo booths with having fun, and it's a long-term memory that they put the print that they've received up on their fridge, and they see it all the time. So it really has changed my perspective on what I want to do to make money.
Right. So I'm also just curious. So for photographers out there, what would be some of your tips and suggestions on how they can be marketing their skills and their products?
Well, I think, like, social media is really important. Um, I think getting exposure on social media is probably the most critical aspect of getting a presence. My website still is a little bit to be desired, and that's because I just haven't I haven't concentrated on building it as I should. And the what else? Networking. Like, I'm part of a BNI group. I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce, and both of those are very fruitful, and both of them take a lot of effort in order to become effective tools in marketing. Whenever I go to a chamber event, I tend to meet, I concentrate on meeting new people, rather than trying to just establish or keep in touch with people I know. I'd rather talk to new people than hang out with people that I know at these networking events. With BNI, it's more of a long-term kind of commitment to building a team of people around you that will then refer business to you, and that's worked out really well. I really, uh, I've been been in that group for 2 years, and I can only imagine that the level of commitment and the level of awareness between myself and the other members of the group, it will increase over the period of time that I'm in the group, and it's something that I've decided to be doing for a long-term basis. I'm also looking at joining the Rotary, and while the Rotary is not technically a business networking organization, it is an organization of business leaders within the community. So while you're not allowed, I don't know if allowed is, you're not restricted from saying anything, I don't think, but I'm talking from the outside. But the focus on your activities within Rotary are to serve the community, and by serving the community, it's something that helps with your public recognition. It's, it's like doing charity work. Sometimes you want to do charity work because it's a charity that you support. Sometimes you just want to do charity work because it's just a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like, depending on the charities, some charities will hire and then we'll work on a program to create a sponsorship program that covers my costs.
Wow, interesting. Well, listen, Ian, thank you so much for all that wonderful advice and tips that you brought to the podcast episode. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, James. I'm glad you were able to put this together, and thank you very much for the interview.
All right, and now we're going to talk to our next guest, Andrew Collette. Andrew is a nature and landscape photographer whose focus is capturing Canadian iconic images. Gathered from the land, Andrew brings moments to life and fashions them into fine images. His images are celebrate in interiors of all kinds. And once again, if you want to check out his more information about him or check out some of his photos, go to andrewcollette.com. Once again, the link to his website is in the description of this episode, or you can check it out yourself later. And right now, Andrew is with us today. Andrew, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
My pleasure.
So, Andrew, how did you get started with your photography and getting into the prints?
Well, photography, I came to photography through basically my love of outdoor nature. That's my genre of photography is nature photography. I had, it's kind of, I guess, a long story short, I was with a friend years ago who was really into photography. We were canoeing, and they had a 35 mil camera and was spending an awful lot of time, I thought, fussing around taking photographs. But when I saw the results when we got home, and he developed the film and showed me, I was blown away by it. And I said, this is amazing. And so really that's kind of what piqued my interest. So I went out and got myself a 35 mil camera, quickly took to it, loved the technical side of photography, loved the creative side of photography. It cleared my mind when I was out shooting, and it allowed me to really kind of enhance my experience when I was in the natural world, outdoors. I moved from 35 mil to large format photography pretty quickly. That was a whole new technical challenge, which I really, really loved. I loved the ability to tilt, to shift the lenses, depth of field that you could work with. And I loved sort of the putting the dark cloth over my head and going in and with my glass and really looking at the composition and working on the focus and the elements of the scene. And to me, that was just a wonderful experience. I went obviously into digital photography, and my first digital camera I used as a light meter because transparency film and back in the day, the original Canon Rebel camera had about the same exposure latitude. So I could, instead of having to calculate my exposures with a spot meter, I could just take a picture with the digital and look at the histogram and say, okay, this is where I want to be for my large format, and extrapolate out. And then from there on, it just, it continued. When I decided to make the transition from amateur to professional, the biggest question was, well, how am I going to make money doing nature photography? Mm-hmm. So this was right at the time when stock photography was on a downturn. There was a mass amount of digital images coming out there. Licensed images for sunset photographs, if you will, and sunrise just wasn't there. There was no market for that. And so that wasn't going to work in sort of the traditional sense of maybe how nature photographers got paid, calendar images, stock images to advertising agencies. So I decided, well, I'm visiting some pretty nice places that people really like, provincial parks, federal parks here in Canada. And why don't I try my hand at doing fine art photography and turning these, I guess, into artwork that people would hang on the wall. And so that really took me down the avenue of learning how to print, because I'm the type of person that really likes to do everything myself. I'm hands-on. I don't want to outsource what I could do myself. And I started out with a small desktop printer, doing frame prints, and then I quickly moved to a larger printer, I think a 24-inch printer at the time in Epson, and started to do posters. And then I started to get requests for larger canvases. Canvas was just coming into the market back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and that's when I went full board. And I said, I got to learn how to do these canvas prints, because this looks like artwork that someone would hang on their wall. And that's really how I got into it. And I learned how to do my own framing, my stretching. At the time, we were coating canvases with liquid coating, and basically that's how I got into printing and evolved. I've found that what's changed the most in photography since digital is the printing, what we're able to do with printing. So now I print metal, I print face-mounted acrylic. We do, of course, papers, canvas as well too, and that's really evolved into the mainstay of my business now, is printing for other photographers. And I actually, from time to time, get to go shoot myself still. So.
Awesome. So I'm also just curious. So now that you're starting to get into printing, how were you able to turn that into a profitable business?
Well, yeah, good question. So I had to print for myself. So when I was starting to grow my photography business, it was only printing for me. It wasn't printing for anyone else. I had a network of, I built a network of home decor stores across Canada, interior designers, hospitality. So I was kind of selling, if you will, into a wholesale market, which meant I couldn't outsource my printing because I needed to be able to produce it at a lower cost so that I could turn around and sell this to somebody who inevitably is going to resell my photography. So I had that side of it that I turned into the business. So selling my own photographs. I did art. I did all sorts of art shows, from people might know One of a Kind show in Toronto, right through to art in the parks all across Ontario. And I sold directly to my customers that way. I did sales online on my website, and usually that was from people who saw me and saw my artwork, and then at a later time wanted to buy it. And then when, I guess it was in 2009 and 10, when the recession hit, I was, the market for artwork really took a hit. It took a beating. I went from selling 3,000 units a year to 1,000. Basically, business dropped over 66%. So that was pretty dramatic. I had an opportunity at the time to start a company called Print Partner, which is my company in my printing business. I was kind of coaxed into doing it, and this was really designed for printing for other people. So I had been printing all my artwork. I had all the equipment, I had the skill, the technique, I had the facilities. Now with the business falling apart because of the recession, well, I needed to do something else. And that's really how Print Partner started. So I knew a lot of photographers in the art industry because we all did shows together, and it's a community, you get to know each other. And I started to let them know that, hey, if you like the way I do my work, I can help you with yours as well too. And that's really how it started to grow. Basically one customer at a time, one photographer at a time. Usually people that I knew who trusted me to do a good job with their own artwork. And from there, it's like anything. If you have a business that has a product at a price people are willing to pay, and you do a good job, more will come. And we started to build an online presence. Obviously, now that's a big part of how our business is done, is orders coming in online from all over North America.
Interesting. So could you elaborate on some of your marketing strategies? What sort of marketing tips have worked for you?
Well, I found the advertising online, actually, we do a lot of online business, but we don't do I don't do a lot of advertising online. That's a really competitive market. You're competing with everyone from Costco to Walmart, and where we try to focus is on boutique photographers. So we're more of a boutique print shop. We do high-end processes. There's no corners cut with our processes. So what I like to do is meet my customers face to face. We'll discover them through, maybe there's an art show they're at, and I'll see what they're doing, and I'll say to them, oh, listen, I have a printing company. It really focuses on fine art and photographers. If you're interested, here's my card. And so I found that that's a better way to convey a message. than a mass marketing online, because one, I would never have the budget to compete with a Walmart or a Costco for photo finishing, and two, you're just a really small fish in a very big pond online. But if you can understand who your customer is and then reach out to those customers, I guess this is more of a traditional type of selling approach. Reach out to those customers and say, here's what we do. If you're interested, let's talk. Well, then you really kind of narrow your message, your focus of your message to your specific type of clients that you're going after. So I think kind of knowing who your customer is and knowing what they want and then positioning your message and reaching out towards them is a better way to do it than just throwing mass market online. Now, we do some very specific online work, so we'll use words like giclée. So unless you're a professional photographer or artist, you're not really going to know what a giclée is, and maybe some people who are pros don't. But right. We'll use terminology that's really specific to fine art reproduction. And so for the very few people that are out there searching for that, they'll come across us, as opposed to using a term like canvas printing, where you're going to get everybody who does canvas printing showing up on the Google search. So that's one of the strategies that I use to kind of help me find my ideal clients, if you will.
Okay, interesting. And have you found any specific types of photography styles that are sort of, I guess, more sellable than others?
Well, I've made my living off nature photography because that's my passion, but we print for a lot of photographers who sell a lot of different subjects, from everything from boudoir through to architectural. Obviously, wedding photography, portraiture, these are all items that sell, but I've had the most success myself with nature photography. It's a very general subject matter. It's not specific, so it appeals to a large market. Everybody likes a nice photograph of a let's say, a provincial park that they're passionate about. And it doesn't require a very specific level of taste, if you will. So some people who are specifically after maybe a fine art black and white photograph of architectural detail in Toronto, it's a little more of a narrow market. So we do print, majority of what we print is, I would think, kind of fine art, nature photography, landscape photography, and we do a lot of reproductions for painters as well too. So painters who paint those type of scenes. But right now it's there's a big trend in the printing on metal. So we're doing a lot of printing on metal for people. And I find that edgy subject matter really lends itself to metal. We're seeing a lot of abstract. We're seeing a lot of very unique black and white photography as well too, that people are ordering and printing onto metal. So that's interesting as well too.
Fascinating. So what do you mean by printing on metal?
Okay, so printing on metal is kind of really the wrong term. It's the process we use is a dye sublimation process. So what happens is we take a paper print, a sublimation print. It's a special inks are used, and we actually fuse it into metal. So it's you may have seen there's three types of metal that are popular. It's like a glossy finish, so it's got a white base, so it would be printing like on glossy paper. And we have a matte finish metal. Okay, so it's obviously matte, glossy, like a white paper with a matte finish. And then we have what's called a sheer, where there's no white finish on the metal, it's aluminum. So anything that's white in your image, such as clouds or maybe a wedding dress, would actually come through with the look of an aluminum. Oh. Okay, so it doesn't show the base of the material. And we take the paper print, the sublimation print, and we fuse it into the metal. So the ink is evaporated and turned into gas through heat and pressure, and it fuses right into the metal. So it's not really like paper on metal or ink on metal. It's more like your photograph in the metal. And it's a really, really cool process. Very, very durable, very contemporary, modern looking. And that's kind of, if I can verbally describe metal printing, I guess that's my best way to do it. They're really kind of, they're very thin, only a couple millimeters thick, the sheets of metal. And they float, we put a frame on the back, so they kind of float 1 inch off the wall and give it that kind of real contemporary look.
Okay, so I guess a metal sheet is sort of like a canvas for painters. That's the idea.
That's right. Yep, exactly. And whatever size. I mean, literally up to like 40 by 60, we do them for people. So we do them quite large as well too.
Okay, so what would be your suggestions on photographers looking for, tips on how they can do framing and set themselves up for printing?
Well, have a look at what's out there. There's and think about your subject matter as well too. I mean, a nice soft misty morning landscape scene looks great on canvas, may not be the best choice to put on a edgy presentation such as metal. So I like to tell people, think about your subject matter, how it would reproduce. Is it soft? Is it sharp with lots of detail? And then look at what's available in the market, because there's lots of options, from paper. Framed under glass is making a resurgent. A lot of traditional type of framing, just a nice gallery black frame with a double white mat is real popular right now. Right through to canvas, metal, face mount to acrylic, which is a very high end process. Some people might be familiar with the work of Peter Lick, galleries through Vegas and other areas. He kind of popularized that presentation, but it's a very high-end presentation as well too. And stop in, if you have local print shops in your area, fine art printers, pop in and have a look at the samples they do and what they're showcasing.
Right. So another question is, so what can photographers be doing in order to sell their photos or their prints? What would you suggest?
Well, that's a good question, because there's really no one answer to that. Everybody has kind of a different, to make a profit from selling your prints. Well, you have to. One of the things that I was good at, I guess, in the beginning was understanding there's two parts to photography. There's the artistic part and the technical part, and then there's the business side if you're going to make money at it. You kind of have to wear those two hats, but it's hard to do it at the same time. So if I take off my artistic hat, my photography hat, think business, I go back to, you got to have a product. Okay, so that's your photograph. It's got to be, and think about your subject matter. Does it appeal? Who does it appeal to? You have to think about your customer. So who is going to buy my artwork, my photography? Because, and what are they going to do with it? Where are they going to put it? I recognized very early on that I needed large pieces. I needed a large piece of artwork, because most people will hang art over sofas, in dining rooms, in big walls. And if I wanted to compete with painters, I couldn't have an 8x10 framed under glass. That's not going to work. So I needed to have a large presentation for mine. So you need to think about who your customer is, what they're going to do with it, because that'll determine how you produce it, how you print it. You need to think about pricing. So you certainly don't have to be cheap. You don't have to be expensive. You can be whatever you want to be, because there's markets for it. But if you're going to be really high end and expensive and limited edition and have that panache about your artwork, well, it's got everything from how it's printed, framed, has to represent that. So you can't go and ask, hey, I've got this great limited edition photograph. There's only 2 of them in the world ever. I'm going to print. I want $10,000 for it. And then you go to Walmart and put it in a little cheapo frame in that. So, I mean, that's obvious, but you need to think along those lines.
Okay? Right, of course.
And you've got to figure out where you're going to sell this. So you have, what are you selling? Who are you selling it to? And then how are you getting it to them? And there's a ton of websites out there right now with people selling artwork online. So they have a photography site and they're selling artwork, and they might get the odd order. Some very few, of course, are doing really well, where most people, because we print for a lot of these folks, most people really struggle with finding clients online. So I was always a big proponent of go do an art show, get in front of people, church basement show, I don't care what it is. Put your art in front of people, see how they respond to it, because you'll learn. You will say, ooh, you'll hear comments like, oh, I don't like the way it's framed, or it's a little small for what we want. And you'll get so much feedback, and then you can refine your presentation and you can start to deliver a more accurate product for what people are actually looking to buy. The problem we have right now in the selling artwork in the industry is companies like art.com, there's another one, Great Big Canvas, there's all sorts of these, and Wayfair, of course, now, Amazon even, all sorts of beautiful artwork available really inexpensively, really cheap. So you can get a gorgeous canvas for $250 that's big enough to put over your sofa online. So we are competing with that. So I think the message has to be more along the lines of what makes your art different. And a lot of times there's people who, a lot of people don't want to buy mass market. They don't want to go to Walmart for their art, if you will, to put it at the lowest denominator. They want something a little more special and a little more unique. So I think getting that message across of what makes you unique, and you'll be able to charge a price that represents, there's always someone who wants to buy a Mercedes, right? As opposed to a Chevrolet. So those are the people you need to find and go after and put yourself in front of them. I do sell online. You need to have a website, of course. You have to. I just the other day I had an order come in from a law firm in Omaha, Nebraska, of all places, and I'm like, "How did you find me?" And they went, "Well, we just Googled search nature photography. We really like nature photography, and we came across your site and like what you did." But I can tell you that doesn't happen every day. That's a rarity. Most people who buy online are people who saw me at a show, take my card, and go home and think about it. They want to measure, look at their spaces, give it lots of consideration, because of course I'm not charging $250 for my artwork. There's a premium because it's unique than what you'll get from the big wholesalers, but they'll go back online, look at it, and then quite often we'll complete a purchase online that way. So my message to people is you have to be out talking to your customers, getting the feedback, changing your message, changing your presentation, whatever it is, as you get that feedback. And this might sound like a lot of work, and it is. It doesn't happen overnight. To very few people, it doesn't happen overnight. It's the 10 years of hard work till you're successful. And if it's something that you're passionate about and you believe in and you love your subject matter, that was the thing that for me, I had endless hours for nature photography because, hey, I got to be outdoors in nature. I love it. But you have to have that passion and commitment to put it in. So that there's other markets for selling your artwork. People who maybe don't want to go through all that can license their images as well too. So we have companies that we print for that actually don't own any of the artwork, they just license it. So they do all the marketing and selling. Companies like, again, art.com and Great Big Canvas is another one. So they'll take artwork from all over the world, from artists all over the world, and they'll say, we'll give you a royalty on what we sell. And they're masters at marketing. They're masters of online marketing and selling. And so I do some of that myself, and it's a nice little royalty check every quarter that comes in. It's not going to pay the bills, but it's certainly going to give me a nice vacation once a year. And so that's another option to do it. So that might be a perfect option for someone who has beautiful photography, lots of it, but no time to go out and sell and market and do the shows and do all their own work. They just want someone else to handle that for them. So that could be an option as well too. Obviously, I can't speak to commercial photography, wedding photography, portraiture, and that's really not my business. But obviously, there are those options for earning income as well too.
All right. Have you also found any business networks to be helpful or useful?
Not really.
Okay.
I haven't found them to be, other than in the beginning, I was a member to get cheap, inexpensive credit card processing fees. Okay, because quite often they have negotiated bulk fees for things like shipping, credit card processing, things like that. So from a cost standpoint, that's helped. From a business development standpoint, like sales, no, I haven't found that it's been helpful, but I haven't really pursued it. Again, if let's say you want to focus on corporate art, so I want to sell my photography into companies who are renovating, decorating, moving to larger facilities. I want to get into that market. Perhaps that would be a good way to start meeting some people. Or if you wanted to do some corporate photography, so hey, I'll come and shoot your products. I'll come and photograph your buildings, your locations, whatever. That would be a great way to do it. But for a nature photographer, it wasn't really anything that I pursued for sales.
Okay, I see. And listen, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for your advice, Andrew. I really appreciate you and your time to come on board and say all that fantastic advice in today's episode.
No problem. Thank you. All the best.
Fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear from you right now. Has there been any sort of advice or tip that has helped you to pursue your passion in photography? Let me know down in the comments below, or please shoot us an email at icanshowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I'd love to invite you to our merchandise shop at shop.spreadshirt.ca/icanshow. We've got some amazing merchandise up there. Plus, if you purchase our merchandise, you're further helping this podcast to get out there. Our goal is to impact as many different entrepreneurs as possible to encourage everyone to pursue their passion. I hope you enjoyed this episode, everyone. Please join us again, and I'll see you next time. Take care, ladies and gentlemen.